With the recent controversy on Epic Games' timed exclusive deals, I think it's right to look at Oculus and their own strategy regarding hardware lockdown and Oculus Store exclusives. Are exclusives hurting the VR industry? Well, it's not doing it many favors, but it's a little more complicated than that. Let's dive into it. As of now, you've got two mainstream options for big budget VR content: Steam VR and the Oculus Store. While Steam VR allows just about any PC VR headset to work with the platform, the Oculus Store takes quite a different approach by only officially supporting the Oculus headsets. Essentially, you buy a game on the Oculus Store, and without something like Revive, you have to use an Oculus HMD to play it. This whole problem is quite a bit worse than, for example, the Epic Store exclusivity, because rather than just having to open up a different game distribution application for the exclusives, you are straight locked either in or out of the platform. It may be easy to jump to conclusions and get frustrated with Facebook claiming that their practices are anti-consumer and greed is killing VR, but there's quite a bit more to it, and Oculus themselves have said that they're working to possibly change this in the future. Before we get to the juicy bits, I want to be completely clear with my personal stance. Exclusives in their current form are not okay, and it needs to change. I don't support locking anyone down to a single platform, and things like Revive aren't exactly perfect by any means. The exclusives alienate and fragment the player base of VR as a whole, but I think a few things I'm going to talk about here, at the very least, may bring some light as to why things are the way they are. And this whole problem kind of has the potential to change soon. First, let's get Oculus's public stance on the matter. They seem to have taken a very Nintendo in the late 80s mindset. From what Jason Rubin in a 2017 PC Gamer article said, it's pretty obvious it's in Oculus's best interest that VR doesn't fail. The first part of his quote is, "So our goal has been, from the very beginning, to spend the right amount of money to create the ecosystem that I believe in the last 90 days is finally kicking into full gear. All I can say is my goal and the goal of this company has been to create the best possible content for VR, and then to have that content drive VR adoption." He also speaks about how multiple other companies that have led new platforms have had to do the exact same thing Oculus is doing now: fund multiple high-cost projects and make the end result of the project as perfectly packaged as possible. Oculus, in a way, are just tightly curating VR to ensure that whatever experience is sold by them will be a good one, and that the boundaries can be pushed that otherwise wouldn't be feasible due to funding. Games on the Oculus Store are well optimized for Oculus hardware, making it easy to provide a similar experience among everybody on their platform, making it also easier to develop for the platform. Talking about exclusives in the VR space really wouldn't be fair without mentioning PlayStation VR. The ecosystems between PSVR and PC VR are almost entirely separate, each platform receiving their own share of exclusive content. Rubin mentions in the same article, quote, "To a certain extent, I'm a little at a loss because Sony decided they wanted to get into the VR industry and they said, wow, we need to make software. And they made the software, and that software is exclusive." End quote. Essentially claiming that Sony's exclusives funded by themselves aren't hurting the industry. They're working to break the boundaries and solidify what you can do with VR. In other words, so that developers can copy them and take their lead. I think it's fair to give credit where credit's due, and VR wouldn't be where it is today without Oculus and the extensive funding that Facebook has provided. Really, since the price gouges of the Oculus Rift, it's been one of the cheaper options for a fully functioning PC VR solution, and that's still true to this day. Both of the upcoming HMDs, the Rift S and Quest, present some great value and will no doubt in my mind bring more people into VR, which is exactly what the platform needs. Oculus has spent millions and millions of dollars funding these well fleshed out, almost AAA quality VR games. Some of the best titles to release on VR, and the ones that will be released in the future, were created directly with funding from Facebook. But let's not keep the rosy tinted glasses on for too long. Oculus invests the money, and they keep the games exclusive on their platform so that you have to buy their hardware to play them. That just simply is what the Oculus Store is right now. And of course, you could use something like Revive to play these games. In fact, Oculus has specifically said that they no longer require hardware checks, but it doesn't work perfectly, and even now, for example, in 2019, friends of mine are having problems with Echo Arena, an Oculus exclusive competitive multiplayer game, kicking them out of matches for using Revive. So Oculus funds all these games, and they obviously want their money back. So they decide to sell on their own platform to maximize profits, right? Well, that's not quite the whole story. VR game development is a little different from standard games, largely because the hardware and control interfaces differ from manufacturer to manufacturer. While I'm sure the companies that create Oculus games receive monetary incentives to develop exclusively for Oculus, there is an industry-wide disconnect between different VR platforms that creates its own sets of problems. Essentially, there is no standard for developers to adhere to when creating a game to work on all platforms between Windows Mixed Reality headsets, HTC's offerings, Oculus, and any other players in the VR hardware game. Huge steps are currently being taken though. OpenXR, a VR and AR API being built to standardize runtime executions across the board for all major AR and VR headsets, is nearing its 1.0 release. You may also be surprised to hear that the group tasked with developing this API, known as the Kronos Group, is composed of folks from nearly every major manufacturer, as well as software developers ranging from Microsoft to Facebook themselves. On the Kronos website it says, OpenXR seeks to simplify AR and VR software development, enabling applications to reach a wider array of hardware platforms without having to port or rewrite their code. This API had a huge presentation at GDC 2019, and I could only imagine the possibilities this new standard will have for games and hardware moving forward. While this isn't concrete evidence that the Oculus Store is going completely multi-platform or providing official support for other hardware, it does at the very least make VR applications run far better regardless of your choice in headset or which store the game is sold in. Games developed with OpenXR will have fundamental support for a variety of hardware moving forward. So yeah, exclusives are a problem, and it's not okay. VR would be better without it, and it seems pretty obvious that Oculus knows this. It's just a matter of time to see if they do the right thing with the technology being developed to fix this exact issue. I can't dispute all the awesome things Oculus has done for VR. I didn't make this video to bash Oculus because, well, I love Oculus. In fact, my daily driver headset is a CV1 Rift. I think the Oculus Store is extremely clean and the content on it is amazing, but we all know that certain things can be done better. We could have a healthier, less fractured community and get the best games in the hands of more people, really giving everybody a better experience and the developers more money to make more games. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on the state of Oculus exclusives, and if you want to see more like this, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Press the thumbs up if you liked it, and if you didn't, let me know about that too. I'd really love to hear your feedback. Are you a PSVR, WMR, or a Vive user and ran into problems running Oculus games? If so, comment about it below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're enjoying your virtual reality.